It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here. We have a pinch hitter for Patrick Reusse. Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune columnist, joins me here today as well. Patrick, a day off today, but Chip, it's that time of year, Chip. We know now who the Wolves are playing. We're going to start there, but we'll get to Wild, Twins, Masters, all sorts of stuff here in just a little bit. But Wolves, Lakers, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's probably a better draw than you could get than LeBron and Luka. But, you know, when you waste away some winning opportunities against bad teams and blow a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter, this is what you get. But at least they avoid the play-in. Ideally you wouldn't draw LeBron and Luka in the first round.
Well, yeah, and you're watching it yesterday, watching it all play out, and I didn't think Denver was going to lose to Houston, which they didn't, because Houston has nothing to play for. They're kind of resting their guys, and that's kind of the danger that time of year, right? You're looking at schedules, and you're like, okay, first you got to figure out, is the team any good? Second, you got to figure out, do they have anything to play for? Because it's just, you never know at that time of year. But, their matchup would have been Denver had Golden State beat the Clippers, and that game went to overtime. So you're talking about a whole different draw based on, the last 5 minutes of the season, basically. I think that would have been a much better draw for them. But you're right. You can't choose. Although, you look at it and you're like, oh man, they blew that lead to Milwaukee. That was their only loss since March 24th. So we can't be too hard on them. We were looking at this stretch of 9 games at the end of the year. They went 8-1. That was their only loss. But if they'd won that game, yes, you're right. They would have been in much better shape.
Yeah, I think Denver, because of the way they match up, and what is it? They've won like 6 straight against Denver or whatever. And who knows? I mean, you still, when you have I still think the best player in the NBA on that team, even though if he doesn't win
Jokic,
this year, give him the MVP every year, I think. But with them making a coaching change, which was reading some stuff on the infighting that was going on, it's amazing that they are in the position they are. But yeah, this is going to be it's going to be a fascinating matchup, because as weird as this season has been for the Wolves, and as unpredictable and as inconsistent as they have been, it feels like they're coming together at the right time. And Ant is he looks like he's cranking it up into playoff gear with down the stretcher. He has a couple of 40-point games to finish the season. Rudy has shown up offensively and made an impact here. And so to me, it's never been about like how good is this team. It's like how consistent can they be?
For sure.
And if they can play to their ceiling or close to their ceiling and not have these moments where they just lose it offensively or just kind of out of sorts, the West is so wide open. Like who are you going to say the favorite is right now? I mean, obviously,
Oklahoma City.
They had the superior regular season, but they have to prove it in the postseason.
Yes, we don't know that yet. Yes, that's the thing about them. And then it's going to be. I just obviously Lakers are going to be probably the overwhelming favorites because the national media love them, and obviously LeBron and Luka are just a dynamic duo. So it'll be interesting to see what Chris Finch and his staff comes up defensively and how they want to approach those two. Yeah, well, it's kind of funny too, because we tend to remember, I think with these Wolves, we remember the losses more than the wins. We kind of people got so frustrated with them at the beginning of the season when it didn't look good. The Randall trade was, people were still just upset about that in general. And then watching him try to integrate into this lineup. I feel like people have been like ready to pounce on this team more than they've been ready to kind of like welcome them in. But look at the Chip. They were 32-29 going into March. They're 17-4 since then. Now, a lot of that's the schedule, and we tend to remember. We remember the last loss they had before that streak was at Utah, which was unforgivable. Then they lost that game to Indiana at home where they kind of messed around. Indiana didn't have their starters. They should have won that game. Then Milwaukee collapsed. Like, the losses were more epic than the wins were memorable, except for maybe that double overtime win in Denver. So they ended up winning 49 games.
Yeah.
And you can't call this, I mean, compared to where this franchise has been, like that's still a very good season. If this was any other year, they might, they were in contention for a top 4 seed until the end. So this ended up being a pretty good season. It just came together in kind of a weird kind of way.
Yeah. And Wolves Twitter has become an interesting experiment or place to watch. It's I always call it the NFL-ization of sports, where we treat every game as if it's one of 17. It's like,
it's terrible. You can't in it. Yeah.
It's like the sky's not falling after every loss. But to your point of how well they play down the stretch, I think a couple things. You never want to say injuries are a good thing, because they're not. But I think the Randall injury allowed him to observe and see and change the way he was playing. Yeah. Becoming more of a facilitator in the offense and not so ISO centric in the way he plays. I think he allowed Jaden McDaniels to see his offense or expand his offense. So that was good. And just when they got whole again, I just think they played differently. They were faster. They moved the ball more. I mean, Ant still can be an ISO player, and that's just who he is because he's so gifted offensively. But I think, to me, 2 X factors in this series are, can McDaniels continue to be an offensive threat? Mm-hmm. And I think they need Nas to play like Nas and give him that scoring. He's coming down the stretch, he was really inconsistent with his shot, right? It took him a while. I think he lost confidence in it. And if he can play like we saw him play when guys are out, and he gave him that scoring burst and the 3-point shooting, I think that makes him so much more dangerous. And so he's got to reestablish that. And I think those 2 guys, if they can give you that kind of offense, they're as good as anyone.
I think Jalen Clark has a role in this series, even if it's limited, because one thing that really disappointed me about the Dallas series last year when they lost to Luka and the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals was that I really thought that they had the edge because they have so many good perimeter defenders that they could throw at Luka and just make his life difficult. Yeah. I think what they found is, A, Luka's just a special player, but B, he's more physical. Sometimes he can kind of work you in the post, back you down. He's got more than just, he's more than just a shot maker. He can do all sorts of stuff. Clark, of all of their defenders outside of Ant, who's just, he's a brick too, but you can't put Ant on Luka every possession. Clark's got the kind of like the build, the body where he can be physical with Luka and, guard him anywhere on the floor. So I wonder if they will trust him enough to unleash him in this series for, 4 to 6 minute bursts where he's just like, go play as much defense as you can. Go play Luka for 10 straight possessions and let's see how this goes. Yeah,
you said the right word, trust. Is Finch going to trust him? Because he's seen his rotation shrink and it's 8. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. One thing with Clark is he's so physically tough and will dig in on defense. And the other thing is he has some fouls to give, right? Instead of Jaden getting in foul trouble and having to go to sit on the bench, you're right. Send Clark in there for a 4-minute stretch to try to wear Luka down because we saw it last year in that series. Luka played no defense. Like, he just sat basically in the paint and let Jaden shoot corner threes and hope that he missed, and most times he did. So he rested on defense and played hard on offense. And so, they need to change that. They can't let just Luka rest on defense. They got to make him work on that end too. But I think your strategy's right. It's just whether Finch and them will buy into that and expand his rotation because he's every coach in the playoffs, the rotations tend to shrink, but this might be the matchup where you need a defensive guy like that to take some of the pressure off other guys guarding Luka.
One other thing on this before we move on to other stuff, I think also we need to see the Wolves be I want to see their kind of playoff mindset, their kind of emotions, their emotional barometer, because they've still had these moments where I think their lapses are still more tied to a lack of emotional maturity sometimes, where they just can't get out of these ruts. And that comes from Ant. And you saw it even in the game against Brooklyn, where he picks up that technical where he can't afford to get a technical. Now it gets rescinded, so he gets to play the Utah game. But like they have to be of a mindset that the games are bigger than any individual beef or gripe they have about a call. They got to get back on defense. This can't be in the playoffs. You cannot waste possessions. You can't have those 3-minute bursts where a team just puts a 12-2 run on you because you just lost concentration or you lost focus because you were disappointed about something. That can't happen, especially against the Lakers.
Well, and you already saw it on Twitter where the reaction was, well, they're going to be playing 8 guys, the 5 on the floor and the 3 officials. So there's always that built-in thought, that, oh my God, you're going to have to conquer the officials too because they're going to favor LeBron and Luka. You can't have that in your head, right? No. You can't have it in your head that they're going to show favoritism because then you're going to be sidetracked and distracted from the most important thing. And you're right. And, last year was they talked about that being a learning experience, getting the Western Conference Finals, learning what it takes. Ant said he realized, gosh, how much more basketball you have to play, how much more in shape and condition you have to have. And so you would hope that they would have learned a lot of those lessons last year, and now you apply them, right? You're going to be better for that. And so, but you're right. Like this team, they still have a tendency to get sidetracked by officiating, by emotion, by whatever, and have those moments where they the emotions get the best of them. You can't have that in this series because LeBron gets a call, right? You can't just completely fall apart. Or Luka's complaining to the officials, so he gets a call. It's going to happen. You just have to know going in that's going to happen, and you got to do the best you can to move on and not let it affect the rest of the game.
Agree with that. Let's move on to the Wild chip. Just noticing, by the way, that the Lakers have the second best odds to advance through the Western Conference after the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City, the odds on favorite, they are minus 135. Lakers next at plus 550. So Oklahoma City is way up there in the odds. They have been the best team all season, but Lakers is the 3 seed. Then you get Golden State, interestingly, which isn't even in the playoffs. They are the third best odds. But you imagine if they beat Memphis in the play-in, they get Houston, and that would be a test for Houston. So many of these teams, these veteran teams, just pouring it on at the end. The Clippers did it. The Warriors got better when they traded for Jimmy. Obviously, the Luka trade. It's just everybody's remade themselves to a certain point.
I'm really curious to see how Oklahoma City, because they were clearly the best team in the regular season. Does that carry through? Is there a difference in the playoffs? Are they still going to be, at that level in the playoffs when the pressure gets cranked up? And so I'm curious. I'm really fascinated to see how they what they do in the postseason here.
On your point about Wolves Twitter too, quick. Sometimes if I haven't watched the game yet, I'll I'll look at Twitter first and see everybody complaining, and then I'll turn the game on and see, the Wolves are actually up 8. What's going on here? Like it's the funniest thing. It's like they can't do this, they can't do that. Turning around, it's like, the Wolves are up 42-34. Like what are we so mad about?
What is the I don't want to get sidetracked, but what is the basis for that? Like it's interesting. I do the same thing. I look at it and like, you would think they're losing by 50.
Right. I think that this fan base is just conditioned in a certain way. And I think it happens every year. But I think the vibes last year were so much different. So I think they were good from start to finish last year. It was a fun team. So I think this year, again, this isn't exclusive to this year, but I think it's been magnified this year, where people are ready to want to prove that this didn't work, or that this season didn't work. And so I think there's been kind of a negative tone to even some of the good things that have happened. And I think some of it's like the way they play too, because like they're sometimes, like Reusse wrote about the other day, like they're fun and that you never know what's going to happen. But man, like they are frustrating sometimes, even when they're winning, because they do some really they do some dumb stuff on the court. It's like they're trying to like close out like a 10-point lead with 3 minutes left, and like somebody like goes down, somebody, that's usually Ant, like goes down and like tries to make a 3 with like 18 seconds left in the shot clock. And I was like, God, what are you doing? You're like,
yeah. And their clutch, the record in clutch games it feeds into that, obviously.
But some of it's like early in the game. It's like, why are you guys so upset they're winning? Like, what's going on here? I don't know. I think people just want to complain sometimes.
Yeah.
I give the Wolves a better chance to advance, I think, than the Wild, should the Wild get in. Although, different team now that Kaprizov and Ek have made their returns, and the NHL is so unpredictable too because you're playing to 3 or 4 instead of 120.
Yeah, you're right. The sport itself is set up to make it a little more even. Yeah, I if you didn't have one or both of those players coming back, and Kirill or Ek, I would say, okay, well, I don't even know if they'd be in the playoffs.
They might not. They're still not all the way in yet.
They're not all the way in yet. But you got a superstar coming back, and I don't know what level he's playing at in terms of 90%, 80, 100%. But as we saw in the, they were playing a terrible team, but first game back, gets 4 goals and gets the winner, and so. I think when you have a superstar and a goal scorer, you always have a chance, right?
Right.
It'll come down to goaltending. That's how it usually does. And so I don't know. What do we think? We're kind of figuring out who they might draw. Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, Vegas, if they're going to get in by getting points, so they got 1 game left tomorrow. If they're going to get in with points, it's probably going to be Vegas because they're 1 up on St. Louis now. They're 3 up on Calgary, but Calgary has 2 games left.
2 games,
but St. Louis just has the 1. So, I mean, the Wild can clinch. They can clinch the first wild card, I think, with any kind of win. I think they can probably still clinch it with a point because the first tiebreaker in the NHL is regulation wins, and they have more regulation wins than either of those teams. So I think as long as they get a point, as long as they get it to overtime on Tuesday, I think they'll be the first wild card is how I read it.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mike, because I went, it might have been the second week of the season, or, they got off to that hot start, and I went and watched them. I was like, man, this team is fun, and we're not talking about the Parise Suter buyouts anymore, and even though they have this, hole in the roster in terms of what they can spend because of the dead money, it wasn't even a talking point. And then all the injuries hit and things, just kind of went. It felt like for the last 2 months they were just kind of hanging by a thread without, Kirill and all these guys that were hurt. You had your best defensemen coming in and out of the lineup, and so. I don't know, because it's been such a weird season. I hate to use excuses, but it has been such a weird season because of the injuries that we forgot what this team looked like when they were healthy early on.
That's a good point. Yeah,
maybe they can rekindle some of that in the postseason.
It's got to be the hope. That's pretty much their only hope, is that the team we saw without these 2 guys is not the real team. But sometimes it's hard to get that back too. Like when you get on a roll, it's it's less about who you have and more about the vibe and just everybody feeling good and getting a roll.
Yeah, and where you're at, in terms of just your game. Like, is the chemistry there? Is the
right?
But it really does. I mean, as much as we've covered these postseasons, like if you have a great goalie, you're going to have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
If your goalie's, if it's not up to par, then it's going to be hard to win. And so we'll see if Gus can, if he can look like the goalie we saw early on in the season, where he was just outstanding. So, but I got to be honest with you, I don't have a good feeling or a strong feeling in terms of what we're going to see from the Wild in the postseason, because Kirill, they've been back for 3 games, 4 games?
Yeah, 3 games. They came back and they had the 2 road games for the home game and the 2 road games.
So it's just, I don't think we've seen enough to know like what this team is going into the postseason.
No, although it sounds like we will see Zeev Buium in the finale on Tuesday, which is interesting because they need him in that game. They probably still need to win that game. They might be able to clinch before that. I didn't look to see who plays tonight, but they might be able to clinch before that. But it is going to be a point where they need to get something probably in that game if they haven't clinched yet. But they also probably want to get a look at him to know, like, hey, is this a guy that we want to trust in the postseason? He could be great on the power play. A guy who gives them an instant jolt of offense from the blue line. Yeah,
I'll be out there to watch him play tomorrow night and write a column. And I saw him. I wrote a column on him and his background, and really fascinating story how he even got into hockey. For his parents knew nothing about it, coming from another country, and so he obviously has an offensive game to him and can give him a spark there. And ideally, it would be much like what they got with Brock Faber.
He came into the lineup 2 years ago. He
came in into the season after leaving the Gophers and made an immediate impact. You saw right away. It's like, wow, this guy's he's a difference maker for him. So, so I think that's what their hope is that it's just another guy that you can count on, another possibility for an offense to punch from the blue line. And so, I'm excited to see kind of how he assimilates here.
Could be fun. I mean, they still have to get in, but the Wolves are in, and those playoffs basically start at the same exact time. It's going to be next weekend if they're both in, and they would both be road teams initially, which means they'd both be home teams at the same time.
Yeah,
in the middle of that next week, probably. Yeah,
the Wolves, they announced this morning they're going to be Saturday night, 7:30 our time.
Saturday night, and the NHL playoffs start Saturday also, don't they? So I think it's going to be.
Yeah, they're going to match up. I mean, it's going to be both will be on the road, so middle of next week. It'll be busy here in
Buckle up. It's going to be like, I mean, they haven't, and the thing is, they've done it a little more lately, but they hadn't been in the playoffs at the same time very often. Mostly because of the Wolves, but then last year the Wild didn't make it, but the Wolves did. So I think it was going back to 2 years ago was the last time they were both in it, and there was certainly some overlap there, but it definitely gets fun, and we'll see probably middle to late next week. It's going to be kind of hopefully they're not on the same nights, but sometimes they are.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes they
don't do that to us. Don't do that to us, NBA and NHL. We want staggered. We want staggered home games.
I still remember watching. I think it was the Richard Parks goal against Patrick Reusse on a tiny TV in a tiny TV in the Target Center press box because I was covering Wolves Lakers. I think that series was in 2000 and 2003, the year before they made their run, and they were giving them a series in that one. They were up 2-1 in that series before they eventually lost that series. So good times. Let's get to a few more things before we get out of here, Chip. Team maybe not worrying about the playoffs right now is the Minnesota Twins. They did
what a segue.
They did win yesterday, but Chip 5-11. The atmosphere sounds like it's comatose. It's April, so the fans aren't going to be. It's not going to be huge crowds. I think I'm going to go Wednesday for that afternoon game and just kind of see it for myself. Against the Mets, but the starting pitching has come around. I saw Bobby Nightingale, our beat writer, one of our two beat writers for the Strip, tweeted like the starting pitching the last time through the rotation gave up like 2 or 3 earned runs. The whole trip to the rotation, they went 2-4, and that counts a Festa start after Lopez got hurt. They're giving up too many unearned runs because the defense hasn't been great, and they can't score. They just can't score.
Well, that's I mean, this last trip through. I mean, you're getting some quality starts. I mean, Joe Ryan started it off, I think, for him with a really important start there to kind of get it going back the other way and give him a chance. But their offense has just been anemic.
They can't hit.
I looked at it this morning. I think they're 4th from the bottom in batting average and all the stats, OPS,
all the big stats.
The big stats. I mean, they're not hitting, and so it's we could point to one guy or two guys, but it's really been collectively and over the weekend. You compound it with like the base running blunder that Jose Miranda made.
Oh, geez. Which got him sent to the minors.
Which got him sent to the minors, and he may be there a while because when things are going bad, it's one thing to have that, but when you have a lack of focus and your head's not into the game, that's, that can't be tolerated. And so I don't know. I mean, the fans, I think, are the no-shows are obviously this early in the year. It's traditionally been tough, but I just think you're seeing the fan frustration in the empty seats and with everything from ownership and just all the negativity that has been surrounding this franchise since previous offseason when they made the decision not to pounce on the fact that they had a good vibe going coming off the playoff.
They had a great vibe going.
It has been just quite honestly, it's been a disaster since in terms of the way fans are viewing this organization.
Yes, and they rallied last year. Obviously, they had a bad start last year. They started 7-13, and then I think they won 12 straight games after that. Obviously, it can change. I think that the vibe did change for a while last summer when they got all the way to 70-53, and then the vibe took another U-turn when they went 12-27. Chip, and I've got friends who keep adding this year's record to last year's record. So now 5-11 plus 12-27 would be 17-38 since then. Yeah. So that's almost a third of a season with some pretty negative vibes there. And the thing with this year, Chip, is in addition to not hitting, you're going to get up to a cold start there. So things are going to happen. They don't look like they're not playing crisp, good baseball right now. It's just not good to watch generally. They do look, whether it's distracted or just not all the way there. Like something feels like it's just, there's a disconnect there with just the brand of baseball they're playing. It
is. Yeah. And I mean, you see it with defensive lapses and, I was watching the start of it yesterday and, Buxton hits the home run and Corey Provis, the announcer, picked up on it. It's like when he got back to the dugout, I mean, there was some energy there. He's like, that's what's needed. Like it's good to see that. Corey says, good to see that kind of, come alive because it's been missing. I think people who are watching this team or around it, you get that sense like there's something missing here, right? There's a spark, there's a jolt that this team needs. And so we'll see if yesterday leads anything. Obviously now you got a huge series with the Mets coming here starting today. And I think Joe Ryan's on the hill tonight, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah, you need another strong start for him to kind of get this series off on the right foot because it just feels like lethargic.
Yeah, and any energy they have feels like they're having to manufacture it, or they're trying to they're trying. Which it's good that they're trying at least, but it just feels like they're working really hard to try to get excited about the baseball season. Well, that's not the vibe you should have. No, and I would say the worst thing that could have happened for them coming off that epic collapse last year and all the ownership stuff where that's fallen through and taken longer than they thought is to have a really poor start. And exactly. This is what they couldn't afford this year.
This is what they could not have to happen, and it's what's happened. And so I think that it just drained them, and it's drained the fan base. It's drained, it's just kind of created this just negative energy that there's only one way to get rid of it. You got to play better. You got to hit the ball. You got to play crisper, like you said. You got to do all those things, and you're just not doing it. And so, and I think that's where Rocco's quote after Saturday's lackluster loss was. Sometimes you got to do something to shock the system or shock, I think you realize it's like we need something here to kind of get this thing going. And so, we'll see if that comes. I thought it was weird that he was advocating they should literally shock players. That was kind of like an electric shock to them. That's extreme. I don't know. Is that in the CBA? I don't know if they can do that. I don't know. Maybe in the new one after 2026, they'll sneak that one in along with, hey,
It's like, we're not going to do a salary cap, but we do reserve the right to give you a little electric
a little
shock.
jolt.
A little jolt. Chip, really quick before we get out of here, Rory, I didn't watch much of it because I was watching the Minecraft movie after a marathon sleepover at our house. But Rory, unbelievable, gives it all back, then wins anyway. Sounds like it was a crazy emotional scene at the Masters.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a huge golf fan, but I'm a huge fan of sports and drama and tension and emotion. And man, it was all there. I mean, it was, as my wife, who's not a golf fan at all, she said kind of giddily yesterday, I didn't think I would be watching golf for the whole afternoon, but she loved it. Like, you couldn't take your eyes off the TV. Man, you saw a couple things. Roy's emotion when he collapsed, and then his reaction the whole way walking back to the clubhouse to the scoring tent.
Right.
It was 17 years of having that. Is he going to be able to do the Grand Slam? But also that final round. To have a 4-stroke lead and then on 13 hit that terrible shot, and then Justin Rose makes the birdie putt at the same time, and now you're tied.
Right.
And then he had 2 just horrendous shots, but then he followed up with some great shots that his putter left him, and he missed the one on 18 in regulation there, and then to come back and make a short one in overtime. I mean, it was just the roller coaster thing is kind of a cliche in sports, but he rode it, and anyone who watched it rode it with him.
It was like his whole career in one tournament. I mean,
it was
what it was.
Day.
One day. It's like the good and the bad and the agony. And he's always been a golfer who, where you can tell exactly what his mood is. And not all golfers are like that. Like, they try to be stoic. Like, sometimes you can't tell. Tiger in his prime was just locked in, ice cold. He'd do the fist pump if something good happened, but Rory is just he wears it when he's falling apart. He wears it when he's on a roll. It's just, he's relatable in that way.
Well, and it was, I read this morning and I thought it was fabulous that the commentators, CBS commentators, did not talk for 7 minutes from that final putt. Yeah. And so, and you could see it, man, you could see his chest, the big breath that he was taking, and the tears in his eyes and just the emotion of I'm sure I have, but there's been few moments in my sports viewing where you just saw every emotion pour out of one individual, like you saw right there. And it was an instant, it was one of those classic sports moments that we will relive years from now because you're right, because Rory is so relatable. I think he's popular for a number of reasons, but to see him finish that off after completely falling apart there on that one hole and feel like everything was going to, he was going to squander this great opportunity again, but to kind of pick himself up and win it. Man, it reminds you why you love sports. Great theater, great drama, great tension, emotion, all those things were wrapped up into. And like I said, you do not have to be a huge golf fan to really get into it and appreciate what that was yesterday.
But was it as good as the Minecraft movie? I don't know if it was or not. I don't know.
It's close second,
I hope you haven't. You probably haven't seen that. Your kids.
I have not seen that, but I'm sure it was good.
You can take a pass on it. There were some funny moments. It was a different movie than I was expecting. There was some fun to it, but yeah, I probably would have been preferred to have been watching that.
But you're with your kids, so that's more
this. Yes, and that's if the Vikings ever win the Super Bowl, that's how it's going to happen. They're going to be up big, and then they're going to give it all back, and then they're still going to win, and people are going to then people are just going to be okay, that was it. I can't ever watch this game again. I can't ever watch this team again. We're all done with this. Yeah. Really quick, Chip. The Lynx made it easy on us. They don't have a pick anymore. They traded away their pick in the draft tonight for a future erasing 26. Erasing a future pick swap. Was that what they got back?
I think it was right. They get a 26. Is that,
and they
read that right? Yeah,
and they didn't need much. I was talking to Kent Youngblood about this a week or two ago on the show, and there probably wouldn't have been much opportunity for that pick to play. So probably just as well to opt out of the draft.
Yeah, that was. I'm sure Showery was looking at that and looking at when you're the GM, you look at a roster over a 3 or 4 year span and probably say, we'd be better off having that pick next year than this year. So, I'm sure that was probably a very strategic.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's how you can do it when the coach and the GM are the same person. You don't have to get on the same page, right? Hey, she's not the GM anymore. She is the president, I believe. The president, she still has the, the final roster authority on that stuff. Chip, appreciate it. Great pinch hit at bat. The Randy Bush of daily delivery. Hopefully Reusse will be back next week, but you're welcome back, of course, anytime, and I'm sure you will be. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, brother.